So welcome everyone to this Runecast Insight webinar about scanning containerized workloads for vulnerabilities. I'm Steve Salisbury. I'm a product marketing strategist for Runecast, and I'm joined today by Tomasz O'Donnell. Tomasz, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Steve. Hello, everyone. I'm in Runecast like for 2.5 years, and I work as a systems engineer. I'm focused mostly on Kubernetes and automation, but I work also on content side, mainly also for Kubernetes. And previously, I was working in different companies on different positions, ranging from operating systems, hardware, and yeah, I ended up mostly focusing on Kubernetes. So that's my main business.
And that's why we have you here today. Thanks, Tom. So before we kick off, if you guys are happy with it, I'd like to just run a quick poll just to ask 3 very simple questions. So are you currently using Runecast? What type of environment do you have? Is it purely Kubernetes, or are you running a combination of Kubernetes virtualization and cloud? And if you're running Kubernetes, where do you have it deployed? On-prem, or in the cloud, or both? So this just to get a quick idea of what you guys are doing at the moment. And I see those polls are coming in thick and fast. So we've got about half of you who've completed the poll. It would be very nice if the rest of you would like to do that. I mean, you don't have to, obviously. Yeah, we've got a few more coming in. So currently what I'm looking at is very interesting. So about, well, 17% of you are actually running Runecast at the moment. 77% of you are not. So I hope this is going to be really interesting for you today. So, due to those figures, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a bit around Runecast before Tom gets into the nitty-gritty of some, really interesting stuff around our container images and how we can check those. So yeah, now we're looking at 21% are using Runecast, 79% no. So we also have quite a large percentage of people that are using virtual, cloud, and container. So that's very interesting. I mean, this is all stuff that we cover with Runecast, obviously. So, when you're looking at Runecast, when I show that to you in a little bit, you're going to see that actually we can cover all of your cloud containers, your VMware, and your OS as well. And deployments. So we have 31% using both on-prem and in the cloud. 56% of you are on premises, which is a very interesting figure. And 13% are just in the cloud. So this is actually quite interesting because it does show what I've actually been reading about recently, which is, the fact that most people are still staying on premises. I remember, I think it was 6 years ago or something, I was working with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and there was a big conversation of, that everyone's going to move to cloud. And I said, I don't believe it. No one's going to trust this 100%. Most people are going to stay on premises, and you're going to get a mixture of people using cloud and on premises. And it seems, from the polls of what we're seeing here today, and from generally what I read online, this tends to be the trend. So no surprises in that area, but very interesting to see, exactly what's going on in those areas. Okay, thank you very much for that, everybody, for helping us out with that poll. So let's push on, and I'm going to very quickly, I'll share those results there if you want to have a look at them. And then let's dive in and have a very quick presentation. I don't want to give you death by PowerPoint, so I'll make this as quick as possible. And let's have a quick look at what we're going to have a look at today. So we're going to have a look at, what is Kubernetes Security Posture Management? What is KSPM? Why should you care about it? How do we simplify Kubernetes vulnerability management with a single platform? And then we're going to jump in and have some hands-on and look at a live Runecast demo. So I'm going to start off and show you what we can see for our best practice vulnerabilities and security compliance. And then I'm going to hand over to Tom, who's going to show us, how we can have a look at image scanning and how we can apply the shift left approach to your container image build pipeline. So what is Kubernetes? What is KSPM, and why should you care? So KSPM utilizes automated scanning to detect the misconfigurations in your infrastructure. And a true KSPM solution should also provide remediation capabilities, ensuring that you as administrators have all of the knowledge that you require to deal with those misconfigurations and resolve them. And why should you care? Well, misconfigurations and insufficient knowledge of Kubernetes can be seen as attack surfaces by malicious actors. So interestingly, I was just reading this morning actually that the Uptime Institute has published findings that 32% of outages globally in 2022 were significant to severe. I know we're still in 2022, but this is, they do their polls over the last year. So they've just released that 32% were significant to severe. And this is also not just because people don't have the right tools on hand, but it's also because there's a lack of people in the industry at the moment. So we really need more sysadmins in the industry. So companies are finding it very difficult to stay on top, which is why, Runecast is so important to our customers, because it does a lot of the hard work that normally you would have to do, where, if you're looking at your infrastructure and something's going wrong, normally you have to have a look at that. You have to figure out what's going wrong. Then you go hunting online for the information. So Runecast removes all of that time. It gives you a load of time back where you can just see what's the issue, how do I remediate this, and stay on top of your infrastructure. So, as I was just saying, it's humanly impossible to manually check for misconfigurations, especially if you're global. That's going to take far too much time. And if you do have a lack of sysadmins in your environment, working with your environment, that's again going to start building up and really start to cause problems. So, with data centers spread globally, this task becomes a full-time job, which is why we require an automated system so we can quickly see and remediate any vulnerabilities in our infrastructure. So how to simplify vulnerability management? There are two stages to this. The first I'm going to show you, and the second I will hand over to Tom for that. So deployed production scanning. We need to see what's going on with what we have in production, what's happening live. So we need to take these two approaches. So one is how do I stay on top of this live? And the other one is, can I not put out my container images already secured so that when I make them live and they're in production, I don't have to worry about that. I just have to check against the latest vulnerabilities. So this is going to really help to, when we take the shift left approach, which is what they call that, this is going to help to, make sure that everything we deploy live is secure. So just to reiterate on that point, so the traditional release model we plan and design, we develop and build, then we monitor, then we test, and then we deploy to production. So it's only at that point that we're starting to monitor and analyze what we've already put out there. So this is actually quite dangerous because we don't know if it's got any vulnerabilities. We haven't checked it for any security flaws. So we need a way in which we can approach this differently, which is where the shift left approach comes in. So instead of running all the way through to the monitor and analyze, what we're going to do is we're going to monitor and analyze before we move to the test environment. So in real terms, this means that especially if you're using Runecast, we actually have 3 levels of admission policies, which we can check against before we release into our production. So when we scan against these policies, as Tom's going to show you a bit later on, we will not allow the container to move on to the test environment before we know it's secure. So that when it's released into production, we know we just have to check against the latest vulnerabilities that are coming out. We've already sent this secure container image out into our production. So no more firefighting, more proactive monitoring. And this is what happens with our shift left approach. So we monitor and analyze before we go to test, then we deploy and release. And obviously we still want to be monitoring in production and making sure that what we have live is covered. Okay, so how do we take control in our environment? So to achieve KSPM with Runecast, just for those of you, I mean, there was a large percentage, I think it was 79% who are not using Runecast. Deployment takes a maximum of 20 minutes, and this does depend on your deployment type. We can deploy as an OVA, we can deploy through cloud marketplaces and to Kubernetes. So there are lots of options. I believe Tom's going to tell us a bit later on about how quickly you can do this with Kubernetes for the deployment. But let's dive in and have a quick look at Runecast in action. So let me just stop sharing this, if it will allow me. And hopefully we should be seeing Runecast. So this is our Kubernetes dashboard. As I was saying earlier on, we do also have monitoring for, this is VMware. We have Horizon, AWS, the Kubernetes, which we're looking at the moment, NSX. So NSXV and NSXT actually link in different ways. So NSXT manager is slightly different, which is why we see it here, but we do NSXV monitoring as well. vCloud Director, we have Azure, this is Google Cloud, and we do operating system monitoring as well. So I'm not going to do a deep dive into absolutely everything today, because today is about Kubernetes. But I just wanted to show you, what we're covering. If you do have Kubernetes deployed in the cloud, we can monitor it there. You can deploy Runecast in the cloud. If you have it on-prem, we can monitor it there as well. So depending on where you have it, it doesn't matter. And you can also, monitor from one instance of Runecast. We can then have a look at the cloud. If it's on-prem, we can still have a look at what's going on in our cloud as well, or vice versa. So it's very flexible in that sort of way. So I'm looking here at my main dashboard. I have my best practice adoption, security compliance, and the vulnerabilities detected here. And I can see some analysis details down here, and I get a nice history, which I can jump into at any point and see exactly what's been going on. Obviously, this is a demo environment, so we have a lot of issues. Preferably in a live environment, this would be a downward slope, because Runecast would be enabling you to take care of all of those issues and really minimize what's going on in your environment. So all of this is selectable. I can jump in anywhere. So let's jump in and have a look at the best practice adoption. And what we can see here is a view of how I'm conforming to my best practices. On the right-hand side here, I can see the percentage of what's failing and passing. So if I hover over, that's going to show me those figures, but actually I can see them here as well. We have quite comprehensive dashboards, which are showing us absolutely everything that's going on from this point of view. And we've tried to be, we actually released this a short while ago, is to make Runecast slicker, easier to use. So if I select one of these, I get all of the information I require on one dashboard. So it gives me my issue description. I've got the issue details down the right-hand side here. We can link straight into the original source. So we want to show you exactly what's going on there. And what you'll see throughout Runecast is that, you know, if I come and jump in, some of it's going to be very simple. So this is applying patches. It's not a particularly complex thing to need to be discussed. Some of it you'll find there's lots of information with lots of references. And we also find in here that we have remediation scripts as well. So let's just jump quickly into vulnerabilities. And you can see that all of the dashboards, you know, some tools I've used in the past, the dashboards look different. You have to really figure out your way around these dashboards. With Runecast, we've tried to keep it as simple as possible to navigate. So the user experience is really quick to learn. We can just jump straight in and see, you know, exactly what's going on, where the information has come from. We've got, you know, the references to the advisories in this case. And, you know, you will find in here, if there's a remediation script, we provide those as well. So for those of you that are, I know that earlier on, we saw that a lot of people were using VMware. We have quite a lot of people using Kubernetes. Obviously, that's why you're here today. On the security compliance front, we currently have CIS because it's a fresh release. We always start with CIS because it's the most popular and one of the most stringent compliances. So we can also see in here, if we have a look, let's just jump straight in there. And we can see here, again, you know, instant information into what I need to know. I've got the rationale and audit procedures here and a remediation script as well, what I need to have a look at. So providing all of that information at your fingertips. There are, in certain parts of Runecast, we do have remediation scripts which will generate specifically to your environment, and you'll be able to apply those either through Ansible or PowerShell. And we also, you know, if that's not something that's there at the moment, we're constantly building on those, so they're ever growing. And you will start to find that there's more and more. I believe we have over 600 at the moment coming in. So I hope that this gives you a nice overview of what we can see, you know, best practice wise, vulnerability wise, and also for our security compliance. One of the really, really interesting parts here is the configuration vault. So the configuration vault was created so that we can actually see a bit more depth as to what's going on. And if I have a look here, I can see, so I've got my nodes here, and sorry, I'm squinting. I don't have my glasses on today. And we can scroll across and have a look at the information that pertains to our hosts here. So what I can do is, right now, I'm having a look at the inspector. So I can have a look at the different areas. So for example, CPUs, I can see the percentages here of what's got 2 and what's got 4 CPUs. I can go through, I'm not going to spend too much time going through here because we can actually spend quite a lot of time. But what I'd really like to show you is an overview. And if any of you want any more depth into this, then obviously please contact us and we can jump on a call and have a demo with you and show you in more depth. But what we can do here is I can do a baseline comparison as well. So this is really important because it means that if I need everything to be set up exactly the same way, I can come in here and I can create a comparison. So if I know that this node here is set up the way I want it, I can select these arrows here, and that's now my baseline. So if I come in and have a look at what the changes are here, I can see I've got different CPU counts, different memory counts, and I can go through, and I've got quite a lot of advanced information at my fingertips there so that I can see, what's actually different in my environment. So when I've set this up, then if I need all of these nodes, it might be hosts in VMware as well. We can do that with VMware, that I can check the hosts and make sure that they're all configured exactly the same way as well. When I've done that, that is the point where I know I've got a baseline. So now for the future, I'm going to want to check against that and make sure that nothing slipped out, no changes have been made. So we have the historical changes area here. And what I can do is I can say, okay, this is where I've created my baseline. I can apply this. And I can see actually I've got some slippage since then. So I've got 2 changes. So there's 2 more CPUs here, and we've got different memory configurations. So this really enables me to take control of my environment, have a look at how my settings are, and make sure that I don't have any slippage, no config drift going on there, and really, ensure that not only am I staying on top of best practice, vulnerabilities, security compliance, but actually I can see all of my hosts and everything is sitting exactly where I want it to be by using the configuration vault. Okay, so that's given a nice overview, I think, of what we can achieve with Runecast. As I said before, we do cover VMware, we cover cloud, OS. If you want deeper insights into these areas, please contact us. I'll put the contact up at the end. But right now, I'd like to hand over to Tomasz, and he's going to dig in. You'll probably notice here that we have the image scanning. I've purposefully left this alone because I want to leave that for Tomasz to show you. So Tomasz, if you'd like to take control.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, hope you see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Cool. So the image scanning, as Steve mentioned, is one thing we offer with Runecast, and that's one of the newest additions. So let me walk you through the possibilities that we have here. And we have a few options options how to use this capability. And one is to scan the image manually. I don't think you will use this daily, but it might come handy. And what I can do is basically enter a URL to the image in the repository. When I don't specify the repository, so it's stored in Docker Hub, obviously. And I can compare it to policy. I will get to the policy later. So once I do that, Runecast will scan the image and will return the results of the scan. So I can see here there was manual scan processed. Once I click on it, I will see details of the scan. So this was scanning Nginx image. There is a list of findings. For each of the findings, you can open details. So there are some short details about it and links to resources that describe the issue in more detail. And if the issue is fixed, you will find out there is some fixed version for this issue. For this image, we can see there are no fixed issues, and we will use this in the demo later. This gets me to the admission policies. We have 3 policies. Steve has mentioned this before. So you can use these policies in the in the various ways. One is when you are scanning the image manually, you can evaluate if it applies or if it conforms to one of these policies. But you can use these policies also in the other ways. One of the other ways is Kubernetes admission webhook. So for those who know this functionality, Kubernetes has admission controllers, and maybe let me quickly describe how it works. When you are communicating with Kubernetes API, I will make it related to Runecast implementation, but this basically applies to any workflow when objects are created, modified, deleted from API. But for our purpose, it's about scanning workloads. So this is describing the matter of creating or patching object. This is specific type of action that you call on API, and this action is then configured in the webhook configuration. We will get to that later. So once a client wants to create a workload or change it, it calls the API. Here the client, it can be kubectl, it can be like administrator, but it can be also any tool that is communicating with API. Once the object is passed to API, meaning the YAML file, API is authenticating and authorizing the user. If this passes, there is another stage which is mutating admission. I will skip this because in this example it doesn't apply, but basically what it does, you are able to change the content of the YAML file like on Go. This might be handy if you have some policies that you want to enforce, and there may be some tools that might help you with that. So once this stage is passed, you get to object schema validation. That means the YAML itself is validated if it's like properly formatted, if there are no wrong objects, API objects, and so on. And if it's validated, it gets to another stage, and that is validating admission. And here Runecast comes to play, because if you configure validating admission webhook, in this stage, there will be call to Runecast API, and inside of the call there will be definition of the workload. Runecast will take this definition, will pick up the images of the workload, and do the image scanning of all these images that are contained in the objects. So once the scan is done, there is API response, and the response basically says the admission was succeeding or was failing based on the selected policy. After that, Kubernetes API will take this result, and if the policy is allowing to deploy this workload, the objects get stored to the etcd, meaning Kubernetes database, and the client will get the response about successful object creation or change. If the scan is failing, the response is negative, and the object is not stored, but immediately the client is notified about the object not being stored or created. So let's look how it works like actually in the cluster. I have here a demo cluster which has several nodes. I have deployed okay, sorry. Once again, so this is the correct cluster. It has several nodes. I have deployed Runecast there. So we have Runecast namespace. Runecast is running here. And as Steve mentioned, Runecast is deployed really quickly. With OVA, it's 15-20 minutes even with configuration. Here in Kubernetes, it's a simple deployment with Helm chart. and it can be even quicker. You can get under 10 minutes even with configuration. So I have Runecast running here, and there is a configuration master node, which is saying that we will contact Runecast API as admission webhook. The configuration is basically validating webhook configuration, and the source file. Let me show it to you. Is defining what is happening. So that's basically stepping in this stage, validating admission, and here for any operation that is create update for defined resources, the admission webhook will be called. So in this validating webhook configuration, I have two of those webhooks. Both are for the same resources, so all workload resources, and one webhook is matched when there is label on the namespace. So when I list the namespaces, you can see there is demo policy 1 and demo policy 2, and they are labeled with Runecast admission policy equals 1 or equals 2. So that's basically what's described here. And once you have request that is creating workload in one of these tagged namespaces, the webhook will be called, and the admission will proceed. Part of the webhook configuration is also the actual endpoint. So Runecast is running in namespace Runecast, and this is name of the service. So we are basically calling service Runecast Analyzer Nginx on port 9080 with this URL, and this is the certificate that the endpoint has. So this is basically the webhook configuration. As you can see, this is Runecast running inside the cluster. It can be, of course, outside of the cluster, can be run in another cluster, can be running in vSphere. The configuration here then is a bit different, but it's definitely possible. So that is basically the admission webhook configuration. The API is also authenticated. So for that, you need to set up API to work with this. I mean Kubernetes API to work with Runecast API, and be able to authenticate. I won't go into details, but we have article in documentation that is describing this, and we have prepared a detailed blog post that is describing the configuration from beginning to end. So it might help you to set it up. Okay, so I have this webhook. I have these namespaces that are tagged. So now I can try to create the same workload I was scanning here manually. So that was Nginx, and as I've seen, there are no fixed versions. So let's say I want to test this admission policy number 1, which doesn't allow any critical vulnerabilities present in the workload. So I can easily, let's say, run Nginx in namespace demo policy 1, and the image is Nginx. This is the name of the deployment. It will run in this demo policy 1 namespace, which is tagged with this label. And I'm running Nginx image, which has some critical vulnerabilities, as we've seen, but they are not fixed. So once I do that, there is this process we've seen on the schema. Runecast is called, and it's scanning the image, and the deployment is rejected because it breaks the policy that I've selected. Now I have the other namespace that is called demo policy 2, and there is a different policy, let's say bound, and that policy is not allowing any critical or high severity workload. or sorry, no workload that is having critical or high severity vulnerabilities, but the vulnerabilities have to have fix. So once I try to deploy Nginx into different namespace with the different policy, it should pass because it's not breaking the policy. And for any of these admissions, I can go to a Runecast interface, and in the image scanning results, I can immediately see what was happening. So this was the first scan. I can click the details. I will see it was with policy ID, and the workload is not compliant because it has some critical issues, and they are not fixed. And the other attempt was the last one. We tried again create pod with Nginx image, and we use policy number 2. And in this case, the policy is not failing because the critical and high vulnerabilities that are present here are not fixed. So this passes the policy. So this is how we can easily prevent running any workload that might break your needs or your security needs, and you can do that by integrating Runecast as admission webhook into Kubernetes. There might be another option that you would like to use, and that is using Runecast as API endpoint and integrate it into pipeline. So we have recently introduced also this option. I have demo Jenkins deployment here that is running on the same cluster. And it's namespace Jenkins. And what I have done is I've prepared this Runecast demo pipeline. And this pipeline is pretty simple. It's, let's say, it's for demonstration purposes only, and it's what it's doing is pretending it's building the container image. Then it's storing it into a repository, and after that, that was first stage. On the second stage, basically we just call Runecast API with simple API call. We authenticate with some token that is set here. So again, URL to service that is in the Kubernetes cluster, API token for the authentication. And in the second stage, what we are doing is we are formatting the JSON body, sending it to API, and we are parsing the response. So yeah, and when this stage passes, I can let's say move to another stage that is deploying the container to production. So let me show you how it works. When I try to build the pipeline, I can give it list images. So let's say I was building image again that is named Nginx. It can be any repository that the Runecast will access to. And let's say I want to evaluate it against policy 1. So once I build the pipeline, let's watch the output. Jenkins is running in Kubernetes, so now it's starting its worker. Check it. Okay. Okay, so the worker has started just now and should be running the pipeline. Yeah, so we passed the build stage, we created container Nginx, stored it to a repository, and now we are calling Runecast endpoint that is scanning this image. And shortly we should get a response. Okay, we got response, and the pipeline fails because in this case the container doesn't comply with the selected policy. So if I would run it again, let's say it will build the same image, and we will choose policy number 2, which we know that allows running workload that might have some vulnerabilities, but they are not fixed. So in this case, the pipeline should go on and move to another stage, which will basically allow to deploy container. Yeah, as we see, the stage is here, and basically the container is deployed. So that's really quickly how we can use Runecast for Kubernetes integration, but also for CI/CD pipeline integration, and help you to prevent any vulnerabilities that might be unwanted to have them in your clusters. Yeah, so that's probably it. Steve, do we have any questions?
We currently don't have any questions. Does anyone have any questions out there? I mean, I was, to be honest, I was just so interested in watching what you were doing there, Tomasz, that I was keeping an eye on the questions, but I didn't see any come in. So I'm assuming that everyone else was just riveted to what you were saying as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we've just had a question come in of
okay.
How is Runecast licensed for Kubernetes?
Mm-hmm. So Runecast for Kubernetes is licensed based on a number of worker nodes. So once you have a worker node that is not marked as control plane, or once you have a node in Kubernetes and it's not marked as control plane, that is basically one license in Runecast. So you are licensing based on number of worker nodes.
And does anyone else have any other questions? Anything coming to mind at the moment? It seems no.
Okay.
So from our poll earlier, there was, if I remember off the top of my head, there were 79% of you who are not using Runecast. If what you've seen here today looks very interesting, please remember that not only do we deal with Kubernetes, but we also deal with VMware, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud as well, and OS scanning as well. So if you think this could be an interesting solution for you, please reach out to us, and the territory manager in charge of your area will get back to you and contact you and help you to, you know, obviously we can jump on a call and have a chat with you. But not only that, we can probably get you a trial period for your environment so you can see exactly how Runecast can help you.
Mm-hmm. And you can easily deploy it with the Helm chart as it was mentioned. So yeah, it's a really quick task. So yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much for that, Tomasz. That was really interesting. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope you have a great rest of your day. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you in the next Runecast Insight. And don't forget, you can contact us at runecast.com/contact. We'd be more than happy to hear from you.
Thanks, Steve. And one thing I forgot to mention, that we will make sure to send you links to the articles I mentioned, so you can go step by step and try Runecast deploying with your clusters. I mean, having the security features to test them. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thanks, Tom. All right,
Bye-bye.
have a great day, everyone. Bye for now.